get to 5 ball. And again, for a little bit of flair, I'll introduce you to my boo rule now. So, I have never been booed. However, I like to leave it open as a possibility. For my more difficult tricks, I get 3 chances. If I haven't gotten it by my 3rd chance, I want the biggest boo that you've ever given anyone in your life. But you don't get to boo until I fail 3 times in a row. So I'm going to try and kick this one up that's on my right foot into this pattern and into a 5-ball cascade without stopping. And I get 3 tries. Ooh, first try. All right. Now, I don't know an awful lot of cool tricks with 5, but let's see if we can get a couple interesting ones. It's called a half shower. These are called multiplexes when you throw more than 1 ball at a time. This is one of my favorite examples of that. Oh, no, but not yet. I get 3. It's that cool one again. Yeah, there it is. One more. Yeah, that was good.
Wow.
Alrighty. Let's see if we can get a good. Thank you. There is 5 ball work for you. Now the journey always continues. I keep learning higher numbers, different things. I will not showcase them for you here today because I am still learning. And indeed, the ceilings are a little bit short. But I would like to introduce you, it's getting a little hot, so I would like to introduce you to my suspenders, first of all. And I will introduce you to my very first love. Now before I was anything else, I was a devil stick guy. That's what these are called. And if they look familiar to anybody, it might be because you attended a Grateful Dead concert in your past. Because these were often available and manufactured on Shakedown Street for sale, and people would play with them that's when they gained a lot of popularity in the 60s. And my older sister is a bit of a hippie herself. She's 11 years older than me, and went to like the Woodstocks with 99 and stuff when they came back after many years. And she picked me up my very first pair of this. Since she's 11 years older than me, I was essentially an only kid. I had a lot of time to play all by myself. And this was a great way to do that. And again, it was before internet, so I didn't really know how to use them. But I started the way that I start all kids now in all of those after-school programs, just rolling it back and forth, getting a feel for it, understanding momentum a little bit, and then hopefully eventually getting a little bit of space between the sticks. These are the hand sticks, and then the devil stick is the one in the air. Then hopefully, I might be able to get them to pass back and forth with one another, and then if they are good, at the end of that first day, they might get their first 180. Very successful for them, and I'm very proud of them if that is the case. But I wanted, after I learned some of these rudimentary moves, even move to the 360, I wanted more constant motion. I saw a couple of clips of people using these, and they were doing things where it was always in motion. And my first one, I started with this pattern. This pattern is nice because there's always one stick on top and one stick on bottom, controlling its movement. And then you can do the same things. As long as you get the sticks out of the way, you can do your 180s, you can do your 360s, and more. But then eventually you can get rid of that top stick and just using momentum and balance, keep this stick afloat. And that allows you to start moving it in different ways, throwing it in different ways, and using your hand sticks in different ways as well. So I have a bit of a secret. I was once a fat kid. For most of my life, as a matter of fact, I was a fat kid. And my freshman year, I was 5'2", and I was 250 pounds, and I decided with my parents that I would attend fat camp. And though that can be an embarrassing thing for some kids to realize that they have to go to fat camp, it was one of the best times in my life. One, because for the first time, I was not the fattest kid in the room. And for the second, I had these things. And it was really the first time that people thought I was cool because I could manipulate props like this. So I look back and realize that this was kind of the first thing that made me realize I'd be doing this for a living, but it was also the first thing I dropped. You see, after fat camp, I did lose a little weight there. I gained it all back pretty quickly, but I did find girls in high school, which are often distracting, and ultimately fell away from this prop for a long time until I picked it up in my early 20s again and started playing with it. And as a matter of fact, that day when I met Alex, I was using these. And then pretty much after that, I dropped these again to start toss juggling. That's what we call throwing and catching things in the juggling world. So I put these down a number of times, but in the sake of my profession and my name, I drop things, I pick them back up. So I recently picked these back up in order to incorporate them into my show and learned a couple new tricks like under the leg. I find that people like this under the leg a little bit more though. I'm not sure why. Around the back. But I also find that people enjoy this around the back a little bit. Yeah. And then my very favorite new trick, I started, after I got back from fat camp, we did something called a rope burn at fat camp, where a bunch of fat kids got all Vaselined up and built these giant fires to burn a rope. And it was a competition. 2 fires, 2 ropes, whoever burned their rope first won. It was very silly seeing all of these fat kids greased up in Vaseline. But I thought that was the only way for fire safety. So I went home, I got a fire set of these, one that was designed to light on fire, and in my backyard, I covered myself in Vaseline and lit these on fire for the first time in my backyard. I have since realized that that is an unnecessary thing, and it takes a very long time for Vaseline to get out of hair this long. But my favorite move when I do light these on fire, and my newest trick, is called the buzzsaw. And the reason I like it is because I can get down here and do it above my head. So hopefully you can have me back in the summertime and I can light some things on fire for you too. Thank you. My very first one of the double stick. Now, pretty much all of the things that I will use for you today are specifically designed props, made often by jugglers or at least by master craftsmen to do very specific things for juggling. These things like clubs, for instance, people have unbelievable opinions on. Just this knob, for instance, there's probably 7 different styles of this knob, and all jugglers have different preferences about which types of knobs and bodies, lengths, widths. Everything is different, and it's difficult to find your favorite thing. Luckily for me, almost everyone's least favorite thing are these cigar boxes. So I have like 10 sets of them that were just sitting in Juggler's basement, and they were willing to give them to me for free. And since free is my favorite flavor of juggling prop, I figured that I had to learn how to use these a little bit. They are one of my least used props, but they are still pretty cool. There are no magnets. The kids always ask if there are magnets. As a matter of fact, I think that's why jugglers don't like it. It takes a lot of force to hold these things together, and a lot of the things that you do require a lot of squatting, so I think they're just lazy. But luckily for me, good save, Jake, thanks. Thanks, guys. So the first things, again, just make some space. Then you can start manipulating that middle box, and then eventually you can start to incorporate the other ones in as well. I might get a bit of the leg, kind of. One more. There we go. You can get all 3 in the air. I can't believe I didn't drop them. So there we go, all 3 in the air. One more to prove I can actually do it. And then of course you can change where your hands are too. And one of my favorite things that really only this prop can do, balance is involved in a lot of these skills. But with these particularly, you can also get them to rotate a little bit. Pretty cool. And it wouldn't be a circus show if I didn't balance some things on my nose. There we go. These back just a little bit later for another act, but for now they are on deck. And people ask me all the time what my favorite thing to juggle is. And that is a very difficult question to answer. Because ultimately, like I said, all of them are designed to do different things. You know, you can just juggle them in very different ways. You get different experiences out of all of them. But I have a fiance who is also in the circus world, and her main focus is the aerial arts. As a matter of fact, she owns a circus gym called the Bird's Nest Circus Arts, where she teaches acrobatics and aerial classes. So her forte is silks, those long draping fabrics that drape from the sky that people get wrapped up in. That's her favorite thing to do. There's also trapeze, there's lyra, and then we do lots of acrobatic things. I am still working my way into that world. Believe it or not, aerial stuff hurts a lot. They don't really get injured, but like there's just this squeezes around your body. There's a lot of things that hurt about it. I am a little bit more on the acrobatic side. I've been working on my handstands. We'll see if I can get a good one for you.
Wow, fantastic.
But thank you. We occasionally do some gigs together. And everyone is always asking her after she gets off of stage if she's ever hurt herself. And that makes a lot of sense. She's dangling 20 feet in the air, and everyone's always wondering, essentially, have you ever fallen out? Have you ever hit the ground? And the answer is no. It is of the utmost importance in that line of business that you avoid injuries at all costs. We have crazy insurance. Everybody knows how to do things very safely. So the answer is no. She's never really hurt herself significantly. However, no one ever asks me if I get hurt. And I get hurt all the time. I am always hitting myself in the face with these things. This on the back of my hand was from some stuff. I've got a big bruise on my foot from some clubs. I am always injuring myself in some way or the other. And believe it or not, these are your main culprit to pain in the juggling world. I know they look relatively innocent, but if you juggle them for long enough, you can say goodbye to the skin on the inside of your fingers. Heaven forbid they hit one of the webs of your fingers. One time I blacked out after they hit me in the collarbone. Oh, they are a nightmare, absolute nightmare. Some people love them and they're their favorite ones. What I like about them is that you can wear them around your neck. And they're rather fashionable, they take up a very small amount of space. There are some benefits to them. But I hate them because they are generally just hurting me. However, like everything else, there are a couple of cute tricks that you can do with them, so I keep them in my act, but they are all cheesy tricks, like this. Also some good acoustic value. Yeah, I know.
Good job.
Fun. And they are generally good. Otherwise, I'm not a big fan. So let's check our time real quick. Perfect. I will now introduce you to the hardest thing that I have ever learned. And that is not something that I can say lightly, because I've done a lot of hard things and I've spent a lot of time doing those hard things. But I am an avid bike rider, cyclist, love to ride my bike, and can ride no-handed very fluently throughout the streets, turning, all of that stuff, I thought that this would be a cinch. I figured I had it in the bag. That was 6 years or so before I actually was able to ride. And the thing that juggling has taught me most in this world is to be able to find celebration in the smallest of successes. It is really impossible to be a juggler if you can't celebrate things that to the observer would look like they are not celebratable things. For instance, when you first consider getting on one of these, you might get to like there without like barfing. Because it feels like you're about to fall off the back of a cliff as soon as you lift that second foot up. It is a terrifying, terrifying experience. So I tell people that they need to find celebration in things just like this, just a little bit of balance. Even getting that first foot on that first pedal is not easy to do. And I think in honor of that, I would like to show you what learning how to ride a unicycle is really like. And I assure you that for everyone, their first attempt with a unicycle will look something like this. And that's worthy of celebration. That's a pretty good start. That's a pretty good start. Now, of course, you do get better. It is obvious that eventually you will get better. And after 2,000 or 3,000 more tries, you might get to a point where it's like, oh, that was a little smoother. I caught it this time. Then maybe 2,000 or 3,000 more tries, and you might get to like 2 whole pedals. Pretty exciting. So I just described to you my first 3 years of unicycling, and indeed, eventually I did get it down a little bit. What I didn't know at first, though, is that there's really 3 steps in the unicycle process. There's more, but we'll start with 3. Your first objective is straight. And eventually, holding on for dear life always to start, you can go straight. And that's pretty good. However, it is not the end of the story. And I sincerely thought it was. I thought once I learned how to do that, everything else would just kind of come, it would just kind of fall into place. And man, was I wrong, because the second thing that you need to learn is to get rid of your trusty support system and do what we call free mount. So you're not holding on to anything, and just by momentum and balance, you free mount and can go straight. And then, of course, that is not where it can end either, because I wanted to be a stage juggler. At this point, by the time I was really learning the unicycle, it was because I kind of wanted to do it on stage for performance. And I can't ride straight forever on a stage that's only 10 feet long, so you need to learn how to do something we call idling. And you've seen that before, when people are just rocking back and forth like this. So this is the 3rd stage in the unicycle process. Now, eventually, you can add clubs to juggle while you're up here, in theory. But as you can also see, I'm doing a lot of hand waving at this point. That is just to maintain my balance up here. It's quite difficult to maintain my balance, and all of the hand waving not particularly conducive to the juggling. So I'm still working on the unicycle and the juggle, but I've got a lot of other ambitions with this in general. It is a lot easier to juggle while riding straight. So sometimes I'm just riding the unicycle and juggling around town. I go pick up groceries on it and stuff like that, just to get more experience on it, to get more comfortable on it. But as I've told you before, jugglers get heckled everywhere they go. If I'm juggling 3, they want 4. If I'm riding a unicycle, they want tricks. And for whatever reason, the most common heckle I get asked for is, can you do a wheelie? No idea what that means. I can't even picture in my head what they are picturing. I am already doing a wheelie, clearly. So I don't know how to abide by them. I am a challenge taker. I love to take people's suggestions and run with them. I just don't know where to start with that particular one. However, the second thing that they also asked of me is if I can do a bunny hop. So I did, just for their sake, learn how to do some bunny hops. Now there's a lot more that I'd like to learn. There's some very cool things like wheel walking, where you just kind of scoot your feet across the front wheel, and that's how you move forward. But this is not my only unicycle. Much like those cigar boxes, it is a frequently abandoned prop in the juggling world. So I have lots of free ones in my basement, and I've got all shapes and sizes. I've got a real tall one called a giraffe unicycle with a really long, same size wheel, but a really long seat, essentially. And then, this is a 20-inch wheel, but they get as big as 36 inches. That's about all the way up to my belly button, just the wheel alone, and there's a seat sitting on top of that. And the benefit to those ones are that they can go pretty fast. On my 29-incher, I can go like 8 or 9 miles an hour. I can probably only go like 3 miles an hour on this one. So one of my ambitions is to do a juggling triathlon, where I am swimming and juggling, on a unicycle and juggling for the bike portion, and then running and juggling for the running portion. So as I continue to get better and better at these things, that is next on my immediate agenda. Now, for the sake of doing things that are hard, that I'm not prepared for fully, let's see if we can get a brief juggle while idling on a unicycle. I do have a certificate of insurance. Did I just hear that whisper? Yeah, it does not allow fire inside, otherwise I'd be eating fire for you right now. But that's gonna have to wait until the summertime. Now, as I said, people do frequently ask me what my favorite juggling prop is, and I don't really have it. Everything's good at other things. I used to be exclusively a ball juggler, and I loved all of those, especially those fancy 3-ball tricks. All of this winding in and out. Oh, I forgot even one of them. I will reintroduce these balls quickly for you, because in my last show, I entered the room, and I could hear the staff telling the people coming in, "Oh, the magician's here, come see the magician." And it was like 4 or 5 times in a row that I was like, it's fine, but just like, for the record, not a magician. You're going to be upset if you're expecting a magician. Some of these things can be magical, but not really magic. But the real difference between magicians and jugglers is that jugglers do not lie to you. Magicians lie to you, they trick you. Jugglers, all you see is real stuff that we've really practiced to do. Not that magicians are not talented, not the things the things they do are very difficult, but there is one piece of magic that I do know. But I'm not going to lie to you. I'll tell you the trick in general. But you see, there's this very cute little trick called a yo-yo. It is often one of people's favorites, especially if I move it around in a variety of ways. It is also one of those things that is fun because it's relatively easy compared to some of the harder tricks that I do, and one of the more crowd-pleasing. But, oh man, I'm such a bad magician! I'm such a bad magician! Alright, we're gonna do a different version of it so that it feels like a whole different trick. Oh, where'd it go? There it is! Oh, isn't that silly? Thank you. But the reality is that if you're just fast enough, you put it into that bottom hand there and wave it into existence. So I won't lie to you, but that is a good one for the kids. Called, there's a name in the juggling world, and it's, the abracadabra, of course it is. So that's it.